Hello and welcome to Right Aligned. I am Orwell McGubbins, and I'm here in conversation with Louie Zeegen, Strategy and Copy Director from London, currently based in Berlin. Hi, Louie.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, thanks for joining me. If you'd like to kick us off by giving us just like an introduction about yourself in your own words.
Yeah, sure. I'm Louis. As you said, I'm a freelance strategy and copy director based out of Berlin. I spent sort of the last 10 years in various different agencies, Koto Design Studio, moving brands, helping brands sort of articulate brand strategies, visions, missions, whatever that turns out to be, as well as copy, tone of voice, messaging, naming, campaigns, taglines, anything that kind of has words associated to it usually finds its way to me, or I find my way to it. And I've been freelance, sort of doing my own thing for about 18 months now. So yeah, working directly with clients, but also with various design and creative studios that I've long liked and long admired, and now lucky enough to work with.
Nice. Um, I always find copy super interesting because like when it coming from like a design angle, I never really saw it. It only became so obvious after a few years of doing this kind of thing that I was like, actually, it's one of the most important parts of it. It's like you
Mm.
can have nice pictures all you like, but if you can't actually communicate, in the written word, or you can't communicate your idea to then create good graphics or good ads or whatever else you need to do, um, then you pretty much fail. So, did you just jump into copy straight away? Was that how you came to work with brands, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I studied English literature and creative writing at university, and sort of realized fairly quickly that I'm not going to be a poet or a novelist or something like that. Get Not that many people get to do that. So I'd always had a bit of a fascination with design and creative industries and illustration and stuff like that, and sort of weirdly found myself in it. Just sort of found a role, became a copywriting intern at an agency in Manchester called Music, and I'd never had any experience of writing copy, but I could string a sentence together from my degree and stuff like that, and it was the best of both worlds. I sort of found myself, in a career where I was writing every day, which I loved, and then also in the design space, which I've probably got no design skills whatsoever. So finding yourself in that was kind of the sweet spot, I think.
Hmm. Um, you say you worked in so the copywriting, like naming, like all these kinds of things. So yeah, how does somebody get themselves into that position? Because it seems like that's quite an unusual roundabout way of doing it. Like you just like landed in a position, and now all of a sudden, a few like years later, you're working with some of the biggest agencies in the world, or some of the like most interesting for sure.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, my my route in was, my dad was a nepo baby. My dad was he was an illustration and design lecturer at Brighton and Kingston and things like that. So I'd always been around it anyway. I just I don't think I'm very talented at the visual side of things, but had a much more keen interest in reading and the writing side of things. So I think the way I got into it was just looking at agencies that I liked or had heard of or was aware of, and just emailed them just over and over again until something stuck, and the team in music in Manchester invited me up um, to sort of start an internship there. And then when I left there, I asked them to give me a list of emails from people that they knew. They gave me a list of people who might be interested. I emailed all of them, and then there was one person from uh, moving brands who got back to me, and then I got in there, and then that internship became a job, and then just persistence really. And it's helpful to have the email addresses and stuff like that, but it was just trying to find the places that I could see myself at. And and then once you got a foot in the door, I spoke to I went to coffee with so many people that you never hear of again. But every now and then, 6 months later, someone remembers you and they think, oh, we need a cheap writer. What's that kid doing?
We'll bleep that part out. A
Yeah.
well priced value for
A keen, aspiring young copywriter, and it's just just staying fresh in people's minds. And there's not that many brand copywriters. I quickly discovered that is it's because I had lots of friends who were designers and very talented, but the competition for internships was so high because if you're a designer, you go to a design agency, that's a no-brainer. But if you're a writer, it felt more of a niche, and not every studio needs it, and not every studio has capacity for a full-time writer. So I was looking at the studios that had a strong writing presence, and talking to them and seeing who they could refer me to, and and then once your foot's in the door, just, it's a cliche, but sort of make yourself invaluable, or make sure they'd miss you if you were gone. Just work really, really hard. And I worked under a copy director called Philip Browning at Moving Brands, who in such a short space of time turned me from from a literature graduate essentially into something close to being a copywriter. Yeah. And it's just about being again, another cliche, but being a sponge and trying things and pushing things, and going with it and looking at things with an unusual angle, and just making yourself as helpful as possible, basically. And then just keeping an eye on the people doing interesting work, where you think you could have a place, and just being in the right place at the right time and having the right conversations with people and gathering your work as you go. I learned that probably too late, but keep it all, because when you do need to share your portfolio or work that you've been working on, it's a lot easier to have it in your back pocket than it is to then mad scramble, put it together for a meeting that's happening on Monday or whatever. Yeah. So that was a steep learning curve, but better at it now.
Yeah, that's actually super interesting, because you're spot on looking for people who would need what you are giving, and you immediately go in at actually quite high level studios because of what you bring. So you bring to them something that, as you say, like all designers can go to any design agency and you can work for one who's perhaps not so good, not doing great work, or a great one. Or immediately coming in at the higher level, because it's like, well, no, we need someone that can specifically write for brands. So you're immediately doing cool work.
Yeah, I think you can tell. Well, I don't know. I think most people can tell looking at an agency website that there's been a writer involved at some point, whether they're full-time or freelance or whatever it is. And it became such an obvious thing to me once I've been in that environment. Like, oh, these places are successful not because they have writers, but one ingredient to the success and the power of their projects is that they've got writers involved on the team. And then I was just trying to keep that ethos up as I progressed through my career and stuff like that, and making sure that writing an equal seat at the table. Because I'd seen Philip and other people do it at Moving Brands and Design Studio and stuff like that, and I think it makes the work stronger for it. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm very biased.
Well, if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. No, I totally agree with you, because it's how you put across those clever ideas. It's how you communicate, and what's the book, The Smile in the Mind, and a lot of that can come from the written word.
Yeah.
So when we spoke before, you said about one of the challenges of working on your own is how do you know if an idea is good? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I guess to put some context to it, because I was so used to being in a room at Koto and Design Studio and places like that with mega talented designers, other writers, client services, the whole team, you'd look around and be like, everyone in here is the business, and that, whatever you call it, environment or ecosystem or pressure cooker or whatever it is, it's quite quick to get a gist of whether something's good. I know good is a very loose word, but I think it's a good word for this, because what's good for one client is not good for another client. So I think it kind of covers it. And I could write something and share it with the team, and like I probably in the first 2 seconds after I finished speaking, I knew whether I was onto something or whether I just wasted everyone like 15 minutes of everyone's time. And it's there's many more brains on the thing, and I'm not really a precious writer. I like sharing things, and I like people's inputs, and Google Docs and all that kind of stuff. So and some of the best copy and changes I've received have not been from copywriters, mostly aren't from copywriters. So it's a really valuable part of the process. And then when I went freelance and sort of now just sort of in a room by myself with my fake dog and my real dog, it's like you have to then be more trusting in your own creative intelligence or whatever it is, creative knowledge, or like your own self-belief or whatever you want to call it, and be like, no, this is good. Trying to get to something that you think is valuable without sharing it, because I think that's for me the thing that I had to quickly sort of learn and adapt to and stuff like that. And it's not saying that when I'm freelancing, I'm just in the room by myself, bashing my head against the brick wall, but you're not necessarily in the room with others. You have catch-ups and Zooms and stuff like that. But I think in the studio space, you could just show someone something on a screen or a piece of paper and be like, what do you think of that? And that, that's already a step of feedback that is harder to get when you're freelance and sort of working out if something's good. Yeah.
Do you have you built in like any process of how you check if something's good, like for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really daft, but I'll speak to my girlfriend. She's a designer. She works at a design studio and stuff like that. So she's also a very like talented writer, but just was never a copywriter. So I'll be like, what do you think of this? And she'll be like, and I try and do it with not much context, just to gauge whether something lives by itself without me having to like over analyze it or over explain it or put a 120-page deck together to try and get just line. But if I just say like, what do you think of this, or something around this, and that's another quite good way. It's basically emulating that environment, but she's not getting paid for it. And then I'll try and push things maybe as far as I can with it. Like I try and get all the fluff out, just get it out of the system. And then once you've got an idea that will fly or pass, then I think you've got, well, at least I've got the headspace or the confidence that I'll just try this thing. Like, why don't I push this a little bit further, or I push this tonality a bit further, or just look at it from a slightly different angle. Once I've got something in the bag that I think that answers the brief and that I'm happy-ish with, and to actually take something happy-ish to something, that's quite a lot more interesting, then I'll that's the process. Just push it further, and you can always bring it back, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I like that you said there that you said a couple of things. You said you're not like a precious writer, and then you've just said you don't give much context, like when you ask your girlfriend to say whether it's good or not. Because I definitely find sometimes there's times that I don't want to kill my darlings. I'm like, I really like this, and I'll show it to my wife, and she's like, and I'm like, well, this is the thought behind it, and this is the reasoning, and like this is this and this, and she's like, that doesn't make it any better, and I'm like, sake.
Yeah, studying creative writing kind of sets you up for that, because I think the format of that degree was, there's no lectures or anything like that, and you basically have 1 hour a week where you bring a piece of writing, or you read a piece of writing and you go around in a circle and tell the person what's not good about it. It's like pretty brutal, but it's a really quick way.
The worst.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, but it's a very good quick way to like build up a very thick skin. Like, I'm not precious now, because nothing you can say about this tagline is going to be more hurtful than what someone said in a seminar about my poem like 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's all about my system. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then also, that work doesn't have context. You know what I mean? That just stands by itself. And obviously context is really important. But if you take it away, or you don't go into the details, if maybe I just give a little intro, like, oh, this is oh God, meant to be creative. This is
On the spot, do it.
This is a dog food brand, and the problem is this. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
Maybe that's even too much, but like, what do you think about this for a dog food brand?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's enough to get a very quick gauge on what it feels like to someone who's not been staring at it for 12 hours a day for a week and a half. Because I think it's really important to take a step back from the thing and look at it again. Like, give it the sleep test, and if you can't give it the sleep test, emulate the sleep test by showing it to someone who doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, you're totally right, because that's when they see the billboard, or they see the advert pop up, and they're just like, oh, they'll have a feeling about it, like it, hate it, whatever. So over explaining it's like trying to be right, rather than your way, which is like trying to be good for the project.
Yeah, and like a vision statement, for instance, if I'm like doing more brand strategy stuff, like, I always think about, if you're like a new employee to one of these companies, and you get, on your first day, you get given your employee handbook, and it's got the vision statement in it. Like, that person shouldn't then have to read 10 pages to understand what the vision statement is doing. You know what I mean? It's click, and they probably have less context than the marketing team who worked on it for 3 months, or whoever it is. But it still should resonate and strike a chord with them. Without the mechanics, or the whatever you want to call it, the hard sell behind it.
No, I totally see that. I've seen a few. I always wonder why people still make them with the employee handbooks, because I see so many of them that's just like, I've no idea what you're trying to tell me here, and you don't then get the vibe from the. It's like, oh, this is our culture, but then when you work the culture, you're like, that's what you'd like it to be, but it's not actually where we're at.
It's true. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's super interesting way to go about it. So you were saying about when you moved from the agency life and you moved into freelance. I know you've only been doing it a wee while. There was like this shock to the system. What was the biggest shock?
Oh, it's a good question. I think there's a few big shocks. I think the first one was like not being around people all day, every day. Like, I'd spent 9 years going into studios and being surrounded by people who do great stuff the whole time, and are like in tune with culture, and like, even just a small thing, like I have to choose my own music now. Like, one of the good things about going into a studio is like, there was always great music on. Someone else was light years ahead of me in terms of what we should be listening to, and I was like, oh, just save that to my Spotify. And there's always one person or a handful of people in studios who have that stuff just nailed, and who so like that kind of stuff, exposure to those kind of things. And then I think like being more in charge of your own destiny a little bit, like the setting the timelines slightly differently, or more in line with what that week actually looked like for you personally. Like, oh, I've got to go to the vet on Wednesday, better push not like I'm adding days to it, but better push that share by 2 days just so I give it a bit of breathing space or whatever. And then also just like finding yourself, momentarily unemployed on a Wednesday and being like not kicking into panic mode, but being like, oh, this is cool. Like, I guess I'll just go and to the cinema in the middle of the afternoon or something like that, and actually just a sort of recalibration or readjustment to, a slightly different rhythm to your working week and stuff like that, I think was a big shock to the system because I've been and had loved the process of like, moving from one thing to another thing to another thing and like working on like a number of really high profile, exciting things at any number of time, any amount of time even. And just, the readjustment of like the setup for the week or the setup for that project or whatever, and being a bit more in charge of, the running of it, which I'd never really had before because there's people way more talented than I was looking at things from a larger point of view, and like, the running of how a studio should work and the running of projects, stuff like that. So yeah, getting your head around that quite quickly was a shock, I think.
Yeah. When you realize all the different parts that have to go into the bit where you get to do the fun thing,
Yeah,
reaching out to the client, the dealing with all the interaction, just like general admin, as well as then deadlines and organization and
yeah, like tax and like I'm in Berlin and like tax is hard enough, and then do tax in a language you don't understand is I think I'm going to jail every.
well, I mean, January is coming.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just sticking my head in the snow a little bit about it. So yeah.
Yeah, the snow. Well, there's actually this is one of the first things that I jumped onto. There's various different, not to part any adverts, but we'll share it after. There's various different places you can go where they'll do it for you. There's a website that I use where you upload your expenses, upload your invoices. That's the opposite, and then it just gives you a vague calculation, and then it sends it off to the finance amt. Um, my issue actually with German tax is the quarterly VAT thing, which is separate from the income. Yeah, and I wasn't aware of this, and I started getting these angry letters being like, "You've not paid us," and I'm like,
I didn't know.
"Yeah, well, you should have known. Where's your papers?" Yeah, but it actually, yeah, is a pain in the ass. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's other things. I think it just takes so much longer than you think it's going to take.
yeah.
Like I'll set aside a day or whatever every now and then to be like, okay, I'm just going to like actually read these letters and actually file things properly and like speak to my tax advisor and just get things sorted. And then you basically get through one thing on that list of. It's probably very boring to anyone listening to this. One thing on your list of tax things.
Part of life, man.
And you just need to sit down away from it for 10 minutes. Like, I can't do
Yeah,
that anymore. No.
it really it makes you long for the days of PAYE, where it's just like you get an amount and then it's like that amount is actually your money rather than you get an amount. It's like, okay, so some of this needs to go to the tax, like this needs to go to here, this needs to go to here.
Yeah, I've got to pay my health insurance.
Oh, they don't tell you about this. It's like, I'm going to move abroad, and then you move abroad, and it's like, oh, remember the NHS? How great that was. Yeah. We don't have that here.
You don't have it, and it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah,
and be just as annoying.
yeah, yeah. And you won't get sick, but you still have to pay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean it's just part of being an adult, isn't it? What I realised.
Yeah, it is part of being an adult, and it's a pain in the butt, but never mind. Um, so yeah, you're saying there about like you get more of flexibility around your life, and I guess that is one of the advantages that we have. It's like all about that the work life balance, that you can fit. You for the most part you can choose when you work, and you can like set your own times. So yeah, how do you tend to use your time? You said there about maybe going to the cinema or taking the dog to the vet or whatnot. But do you find yourself working 5 days, or are you more flexible?
Yeah, I mean, the cinema in the day thing was, I just had a not just had a baby. I've got a 5-month-old baby. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So anything that resembled free time before is now is not, and that's kind of the best thing about being freelance. So I do still kind of work 5 days, like mostly. Some some weeks I like I something will be pushed, so I'll only be working 4 days or 3 days or whatever. But I do still stick to 5 days. I might, I think the best thing about it is the flexibility to then choose, because if the our situation changes or whatever, thing like that, or when my partner goes back to work and stuff like that, I could just say, you know what, I'm not going to be doing Fridays anymore, and I just don't work Fridays, and I have the freedom in Berlin. That's quite a popular, uh, kind of popular way of working.
Mm.
So I think I still stick to 5 days, and then within the days, like there's times because I'm working at home. There'll be times that my partner has, got an appointment to go to, so I'll stop work for a few hours to look after my son, and then I'll pick it up when he's gone to bed again. So you have the flexibility to sort of piece it together, which is also really really nice. And I think as long as you're like making the time up, it's not like you're shortchanging people, but and also getting the work done.
Mm.
I think it works out quite nicely. Because, like for example, I was like walking my dog the other day, and just being away from something for half an hour got me the stepping stone to where I needed to be for this project. And actually, like, oh, it's kind of cool to have the flexibility to like take the dog for a walk at 3 in the afternoon or whatever,
Mm.
or push my lunch to later, or whatever it is. And then I think it just gives you an inch of breathing space away from it. Then you can then be like, oh yeah, I've got that thing down. But
Mm.
yeah, the cinema in the afternoon, I did that twice when I wasn't working for a couple of days, like a few months ago, before baby was coming. And it's so weird. I was the only one in the cinema at like 2 in the afternoon,
Mm.
and I just felt like, I don't know. I don't think I. This is going to sound very stupid, but whenever I'm not working in the week and I'm walking down the street, I'm convinced. When you're a kid, and they would say if you skive off school, the police will pick you up and bring you back to school. In my mind, that's what's happening to me when I've like got the odd Wednesday off.
Yeah.
I came out of the cinema, I was like, that felt like I was doing something bad.
Mm.
But I wasn't working, and you can just do that.
Yeah, I get that exact feeling. It's like walking down the street and it's like, do none of these people work? And I'm
What
like,
are you people doing?
yeah. I'm like,
It's a nice treat for having to do the tax. The ability to be like, oh, next Wednesday I don't have anything booked in, so I'm gonna go for a bike ride, or I'm gonna go for like a long lunch, or
mm,
stuff that makes it kind of worthwhile for working the rest of the time.
yeah. But I think we have to. I think it's so easy to, when you are working, you sit down at your desk and you can just work for however many, 5, 6, 8 hours, and you really have to construct these parts of your day. So having a dog to go out and walk, or having the opportunity to like um, be with your son, like for me, I don't. I used to have a cat, but he died this year, and it's like I live here with my wife, but like I have to like construct things in the day to get me away from my desk. Otherwise,
Mm.
it's like, especially in the winter, you wake up, you sit down, and then all of a sudden it's dark, and you're like, "What have I done?" And you don't
Yeah,
get that those, like you said about the sleep test or whatever, like putting things into your day so that you can go away from a piece, come back to it, and go, "All right, and now I get it. Now I have something that can really, I can push forward with it."
yeah. I'll often find myself like eating lunch at my desk, just because I'm aware I need to eat, but it's come at a bad time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Bloody human body.
failing me again. Um, but I mean, I would have hit something, or I would have hit a stride or an idea that I want to push a bit further. And if I'm like, oh, I'm going to take an hour to have a sandwich, like you lose momentum a little bit.
Yeah.
So doing that, and then just rejigging the lunch hour for a dog walk later on, I feel like it's better for him. He doesn't give a toss whether I'm eating lunch or not, but he needs to go out. So it gives you that sense of reflection, or just take your mind off it. And then I find when I take my mind off it, often it will come back in at a different angle or something like that. And then it helps you see it, or kicks open something that you hadn't thought about when you were just staring at your Google Doc.
But I guess that's part of the dichotomy of it, is that you think, because there has been times where I've been working and I have just been sitting staring at something, just waiting for it to do what I want it to do, not necessarily going. And it's like you think that the longer you work and the longer you like try it, something's gonna come, knowing for a fact that if you do go away and come back. So it's like a situation.
Yeah, the amount of times that I've woken. This is going to sound really, I don't know, like I've made it up or just nonsense, or like
Everything's made up. Don't worry about
it. What is this? It doesn't make any sense. That I've woken up in like the middle of the night and just written not the idea, but a sequence of words that then opens the door to something, or helps me look at it in a different light, just because I'm not thinking about it, and I'm actually switched off and relaxed, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that just lets, like you said, like staring at it for 8 hours, just expecting it to do its thing when it's not going to do a thing.
Yeah.
And just like literally getting out of the room you're in can be enough. Go and like have a cup of coffee or something and be like that's it.
Running back before the kettle's even
yeah, exactly. It sounds really square because it makes your lives harder, but it sounds a bit douchey. Can I say douchey?
You can say douchey, but actually, so I've read into things like this, and it's that part of your brain that reminds you of that actor's name, like hours after the conversation. I mean, you can feed your brain, and then it will do the job. If you go away and do something else, if you stop bothering it with trying to force it to do something, your brain can just like build this stuff up from nowhere. It's like there's a really interesting book by David Lynch, Catching the Big Fish, I think it's called. And he talks about using deep meditation to actually bring out interesting ideas. And this is all it is, like feed your brain this information and then let it bring out this. I mean, he does like super weird stuff. But like, we have to learn to work around our weird bodies and brains.
Yeah. And I think, because now my calendar has, when I went freelance, my calendar went from being quite, catch up heavy and stuff like that to being quite catch up empty. And it's just sort of, it's not free time, but it's less formed time being a freelancer. And I think for me, it's knowing when. What am I trying to say? When to put, bookends on it, and when to actually just like let yourself go, because they'll work into the middle of the night. But sometimes you get there in the middle of the night. Like I'll be watching like Squid Game, the challenge or whatever. I'm like, oh god, I'm really enjoying watching these people get, lose this, and then it'll be like, oh god, I got the thing. So learning, but then sometimes you want to be like, oh, I just need to finish work at 6 or 6:30 tonight. Like, I just need to not think about this. I don't know. I think that's the thing. When your day is a little less structured, it's a bit of a learning curve to what I'm trying to say, like find the stuff within it or know when to stop it. Do you know what I mean?
It's another level of control that you need to bring in. So like we were saying about all the taxes and doing the outreach and doing all of those things, it's like this is another thing that going to work and being told by someone, you finish at this time, it's like, awesome, thanks. Whereas, yeah, you could quite easily, that's burnout, right? So when you just keep working and keep working and keep working and you bookend it, as you say, you could just do it forever.
Yeah, it's like, because I can get to, like, I don't know. Now with my son, it's a bit easier because I know we got a routine down where I start certain parts of the routine, like bedtime and stuff like that, and then my girlfriend takes over. So like, I know that I need to be present for something else at this time. So sometimes I just go until then, and I'll go back after he's gone to bed, just because I want to finish the thing off. That helps put some structure in. But then before that, it could get to, like, whatever it is in the evening. I'm like, I feel like I'm close. I'm gonna go another hour, and then before you know it, it's midnight or whatever it is, and you've just exhausted yourself for the next day.
Yeah. In what other ways has like being a dad changed your approach to your work?
Oh, hard-hitting questions, isn't it? I think not just work, but everything. Like, my perspective has shifted, like, drastically on everything. Like, everything beyond him now seemed a lot less important than it was. So, like, I don't know. If we think about work, like when I was a junior and just starting out, it was the most, like, important thing to me. It was like getting on the good projects, working on the good stuff, working with the great studios. To get good at something, I think you have to kind of live and breathe it for the first however many years to really commit to it. And I think that's true of any industry, I think. But now that I've had a kid, it's like, oh, copied it. It's not it's not brain surgery, isn't it? Like, it's not rocket science. It's not more important than what I have to be to the rest of the time. You know what I mean? So I think it changes my perception of it. Obviously, when I'm working, everything's really important. Like, the work is still important. I still love working on cool stuff and still love working with cool people. But then, like, he doesn't care that I'm 20 minutes away from a good tagline. You know what I mean? Like, he needs something else from me. You know what I mean? So it just changes your perspective on everything, work and beyond. Like, stuff that used to frustrate me or confuse me or just I don't know, be annoying. You can kind of let go of that quite, not easily, but easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense. So being in that position and having had that transition, is there anything that you could share that would help people let go some of this stuff that doesn't matter, without becoming a parent?
You gotta say, have a baby.
It doesn't happen right away. You have to wait for like 8, 9 months ish.
9 months, you're going to be working so hard.
this one trick.
9 months. 9 months are going to be very stressful, where you get everything ready. No, I guess if you, like, have things beyond the work, like, so my thing now is my son beyond the work. But then, I think if you live and breathe you do nothing but copy or design or whatever, then you're you you'll run into a wall quicker, I think, and just have other things that force you to let go, whether it's a kid or a dog or a hobby or you know I don't know, whatever it is whatever it is that like forces you to detach from it for the evening or the weekend or whatever it is, then I think actually like distance is healthy from these things. And actually like we said before, just like going away from it,
Mm.
it seems counterintuitive, but going away from it will often make it better. Does that answer your question? I don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that was excellent. Thank you. So when we first chatted, we both discovered that we are absolute InDesign geeks.
I wouldn't say that. I said I like it. I'm just not very good at it.
The note I made was InDesign geek. So
I love it. I do love it. I just wanna clarify because there might be people who listen to this who know
okay,
how bad I
I'm
am.
an InDesign geek, and I'm desperate. I meet so many design and creative people who it's like they'll do everything on Illustrator, or it's like they love Photoshop, and I meet so few people who would even open InDesign.
I
So
just don't know how to use anything else. That's the minute I learned how to use InDesign, it was like we were working on something, and one of the designs, just to save time, she was like, "I'll just show you how to use InDesign because we can do this in half the time if you could do this as well." So she just showed me the basics, and now I'm not going to learn anything else. Like now that yeah.
so is it so your role? I guess is it more about so they'll make a doc and you edit in the doc, like that's how you'll use it.
No, I'll use it. I'll use it to make decks and share stuff. Like I'll do all my work in like a Google Doc, or like I write it down.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first draft of everything that's like really bad, and then from there I'll put it into a Google Doc and make it good ish. And then to share things, if I've got the time, I'll make it into a deck in InDesign. And then InDesign becomes the, I don't know, the sacred space. Like I won't just work in, I'll only copy and paste into InDesign. I won't work into it because I'll probably make mistakes.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, Yeah, I absolutely love it. It was the agency I worked at years and years ago. We did a lot of layout, so that's how I got into it. So the guy that ran the agency, like his background was in writing,
Mhm.
and I every morning I did lynda.com. I did like training in InDesign and learned all
Use
the ins and outs and the weirdest things that it can do. And I love it. And then I try and connect with people about it, and they go, "No,
no, no,
I do layouts in Illustrator, bro."
yeah. I found it to be for what I need. I need a tool that could just like let me put my story together in a neat way, like a slides based story. And I always thought Google Docs looked terrible.
Hmm.
Like even with people's own branding, I don't know, I just don't like it. And then Keynote just took so long to open on any computer that I ever had. So I just met in the middle and went with InDesign, and it stuck and it made sense to me. I like the pacing of like telling a story over slides, and then I never really had a need for Illustrator or anything like that because I was always sat next to someone who was way more talented and proficient at it than I ever was. And I'll leave the actual visual stuff to the professionals. And then just I liked InDesign just to like as a tool to help me tell the story or to a build to a point in a in a um, in an engaging way. I think there's something quite powerful about in control of a pace of something.
100%. Totally, totally, totally. That's why it's like when we do brand presentations, well, and if it's going to be uh, over a screen or if it's with someone, it's like we'll share a screen and take them through it. Like I used to send them the thing, and then you just watch them flick through, and it's like
Yeah.
they're not keeping up with you. Whereas exactly as you say there, being able to like, all right, this is the pace we're going to tell them, and you watch it build.
Mm.
It's yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, yeah. It's about as close as I would ever get to being a novelist now, I think.
Could still happen, you know.
Yeah.
Lots of people write their first books when they're a bit older.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I'd now struggle to write anything longer than 10 words though.
Well, there you go. You can go back to poetry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So just before I let you go, how do you keep yourself happy in your work?
Jeez. Happy in my work or happy with my work? In my work.
Yeah, what happy in your work?
Um I I I try and align myself or get in the running for things which will like open my eyes to something that I haven't necessarily seen before, or will push me to write or think or create something sort of out of my comfort zone slightly. And I think the happiness really comes from a sense of a job well done or a sense of satisfaction that you've nailed something, and it couldn't be any better than you made it. Because I think there's some projects that for whatever reason this doesn't come out the way that you want it to come out, or the relationship is a bit weird, or you didn't get in that one idea that you think could have really made it sing, or you misinterpreted something, whatever it is. And then true happiness comes from when all those stars align a little bit, and you get a really forward thinking client who is up for doing something really exciting, B trusts you to do something really exciting, and then C, which is also I think the most exciting one, who like pushes you to do something really exciting. Like they just want you to like really flex that muscle or whatever it is. And then you get the work that you didn't know where it was going when you started, and it's really refreshing and exciting, and you think, oh wow, I'm super proud of that. It's like one I would send my mum or whatever. And then like the kind of result of it being one that again opens doors to other things that you're interested in, or is something that someone will message you and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like I think that's you did a job well done there. So it's always nice to have like people respond positively to things, because at the end of the day it's branding.
Yeah,
It's not Nobel Prize winning humanitarian work. So
it could be branding for Nobel Prize winning humanitarian.
yeah, could be. I haven't had much of that fly across my desk yet, but
It's coming, man.
yeah. But I think just being, and then if things don't go super well, just being at peace with it and not beating yourself up too much about it. Because I think, like, I'm not a precious writer, but you still want to do a good job of it, and you still want to create something that you're happy with. And when that doesn't happen, it can be for any number of reasons, but not to take it. I don't try not to take it personally, or I try not to overthink it or rehash it or anything like that, and just be like, okay, what can I learn from that process? How could I have avoided that? And then build from there. Try and take something from all of the projects, good or bad. I mean, there's no bad projects, but what's the word I'm looking for? Enjoyable or a little bit harder work.
Yeah, that's an excellent response. And yeah, thank you for joining me for such a fantastic conversation.
Cool. Well, thanks for your cool questions and inviting me to join in. I hope it was, if not helpful, at least enjoyable to listen to.
Where can people find out a bit more about you?
My website, so www.louiezeegen.com. Louie is Louie, and Zeegen is Zeegen, because everyone always misspells both of them. Yeah, that's probably the best place for my work. My Instagram is not very insightful.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one.
Yeah, cheers.